Hi, this is Rose Spicer. I'm responsible for industry marketing here at Oracle. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Sean Kelly from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits. We've had a wild year, Sean. Can you talk a little bit about your business, a liquor retailer down in Florida? Can you talk a little bit about your business? And then we're going to talk about what you guys have been going through in this last year.
Sure. So we are a family-owned, Florida family-owned and operated business. We are celebrating our 85th anniversary this year. Very much a part of all the communities in Florida. And a year ago is when we first started seeing the effects of COVID in Florida. I realized that Florida is different than a lot of states, but that's when we started feeling the effects of it. A number of things had happened around the country that led to some government ordinances, both at the county and then at the state level as well. And fortunately, during that time period, we were deemed an essential business. I don't think anybody realized how essential Chardonnay, Cabernet, and Tito's was in their lives until that point. But that was a really big step for us because once we were deemed essential, we knew then that we had the ability to stay open. And from that point on, it was really a matter of figuring out how do we adapt to the very dramatic changes that were happening with our customers. The biggest one happened, the two biggest ones. First, on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day in Florida, all the bars and restaurants were shut down in Florida. So we saw an initial big wave of customers coming in at that point. And then in the middle of April, when stay-at-home orders were more in place, and being followed at that point in Florida, we added curbside to our business. And that was a dramatic shift as well. Before that, we had done a couple years of work to build out our e-commerce. So we were ready for massive change and we got it.
So can you talk a little bit about how that changed our operations? So leading into the pandemic, in conversations that you and I've had before, you were talking about the online experience was more of a curated experience, maybe something for a little bit more high end. Can you talk about how this changed the online experience? And then what did your staff do in order to kind of take that online to in store? To talk a little bit about some of the operations that you needed to change pretty quickly.
Before COVID, it was just known in our business, in our company as BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store. So it was how many BOPIS orders did you have on a particular day? And the number was extremely low on a point that wasn't concerning from a company-wide investment standpoint, but low to the point where we didn't have as much buy-in from the stores about its importance to our overall brand and service as a company. The orders just weren't there on a level where we saw daily traffic in the stores. But once COVID hits, it's like this one day where the number of orders went way up. And from that point on, it really hasn't come down a lot. We're not at the 2000% gains that we were in those first couple of months. But with that, our operations portion of our stores had to adjust to not just more people coming in to pick up an online order, but now more people pulling up in their car for a curbside order. So operationally, we had to create essentially captains for our online orders. So you saw a change in our actual schedules where, on any given day, somebody would have to be positioned to handle online orders. And there are different components to that, whether it's returns, changing the order, which ones are going to be handled at the register, which ones are going to be handled curbside. Because we're alcohol retail, we have to worry about IDs. So all those factors played into what we were trying to do operationally. And it was at that point that we got big buy-in from our stores. And we have really great team members who adapt really quickly. And once they bought in and saw what it meant to our business and our future, it really changed things. But adding that captain position was critical.
And the technology that you use to enable the selling and the buying and everything, you're using the commerce solution, and then you also had a couple other elements to that to manage the in-store. Could you just talk about the role of technology in the experience?
Sure. When you've been around as long as we have on a brick and mortar level, technology has not necessarily been at the forefront of our thinking. And over the last couple of years, we've had to advance on a very high level the systems that we have in place to handle what we do as an alcohol retailer. And so that includes how to handle an in-store purchase, how to handle an online purchase, how to handle the shipping that goes with that, and more recently, how to handle same-day delivery, all coming through those systems. And so they all have to talk to each other in a way that, and this is one of the biggest benefits to us, we're able to show real-time inventory or very close to real-time inventory to meet the demands of our guests, which have changed dramatically as they shop online. But we couldn't just think of ourselves as e-commerce. We had to blend with what we were doing at the stores. And with that comes a learning curve as well. It's changing a lot of the old ways of doing things from a business perspective. And not only did we need the systems to keep up with that, we needed the change management processes internally to get people on board with how to use those systems and teaching them how they all talk to each other.
Sean, can you talk a little bit about some of the key things that you guys did from an operational standpoint to make people feel safe with shopping at ABC?
Doing that and getting that right in the early part of all this was a critical part of what we were trying to do. And it really wasn't just our guests, it's our team members as well. We had to figure out, what are we going to do to keep our team members safe, and what are we going to do to make sure that guests feel okay to come into our store. It's not enough to just say, hey, we're essential, come on in. You have to make them feel like and know that they're protected and we're looking after them. So within a few days of being deemed essential, we have our own maintenance department, and within a 3 to 4 day period, we stood up 425 roughly cashier shields. And these were shields that we manufactured on our own. We quickly went down, started measuring out how tall are the guests, how tall are the team members behind a counter, how much room do we have to have for a case or a package to go underneath. And so once we got those up, it gave off this sense of, okay, I'm safe at the register. And this was in addition to putting up social distancing signs. And throughout this process, every time we added a layer of safety, we would email all of our guests in the same way that we do from a sales or coupon perspective. We were telling them, here's what we've done in the store. We now have shields. We now have, round the clock cleaning of all the high touch points. We made masks mandatory for our team members first, and then it became mandatory for our guests as well. And then that big component that I referenced before was adding curbside. We knew that no matter what we did to tell people that our stores were clean, we could show it to them. We could have rags out, wiping everything down. There was enough of our guests who just didn't want to leave their homes or their cars, so we added the curbside element. And in the beginning, it was just people popping their trunk. Slowly, it was opening their back doors, but we let the guest invite us in essentially to say, here's what I'm comfortable with. And our team members learned to get a feel for who's comfortable with what. And that really kept us going for the last year.
So in terms of the treatment of the guests and then also the ability to fulfill the orders, I would say that you guys definitely are seeing more loyalty as a result. Can you talk a little bit about loyalty and what that means to you guys at ABC?
Yeah, for us, it means showing that they matter to us. So not just telling them, not just sending them a $5 coupon. It means actively showing them that their wellness and their well-being matters to us. So you have to be, in our opinion, very visible with what we're doing. It didn't need to be some behind the scenes that nobody sees us cleaning. We wanted to show that matters. And the fact that we did a couple of other changes where we changed our store hours so that more of our team members could handle daycare, handle changes in their home lives, where maybe one spouse wasn't working anymore, or maybe they didn't have the daycare that they were used to. Maybe it was an elderly parent who needed extra attention. All those things factored in. We decreased our hours somewhat, and had to tell our guests, here's why we're doing it. We have to look after our team members. We've seen over the last year that that matters and has mattered more than the coupons that we give, the points that we give, the free bottles that we give. I'm not saying that that stuff doesn't matter too, but it was really in the end how we treated them that mattered the most.
Yeah, there's an awesome quote that says, people don't remember what you did, but they remember how you made them feel. Right?
Yeah, for the last year, it's been all about, can you make them feel safe?
Absolutely. We've done some research in the last few months ourselves to just look at what people are doing during the pandemic and what behaviors changed during the pandemic. People bought online for things like alcohol and for groceries and things that they never thought they'd be buying online before. There were people that tried new brands during COVID and during the pandemic. So they were all about discovery, but it was mostly online. Do you think that online is the way forward, or do you think that the role of the store is going to be vital to your future? Can you talk about that from an experience perspective?
Our data really proves to us how much the personal interaction means to our guests. There's no question that online ordering and e-commerce as a whole is growing by leaps and bounds, but there will always be a major component for brick and mortar. In our line of work, you walk into a store, there's a lot coming at you all at once, from different types of bottles, different types of categories. The labels all say something different. It's a lot to figure out. And if you're not experienced in that, you really do need somebody who's going to talk to you and talk you through what you're trying to do. And maybe your goal in the store is to save some money. So it helps to have someone there to steer you in that direction. Maybe your goal is to satisfy a lot of different types of people at a wedding. So having that personal interaction matters. Again, we've seen, even since the pandemic started, our e-commerce numbers continue to grow. Not like it was during the spike, but there's still high percentages of gains, which basically tells us that people are feeling either they didn't realize before that you could legally do this online. We hear that from time to time, especially as it relates to delivery. But even in online ordering, it just wasn't something that was clicking for people. But we are very confident now more than ever, and I think we were hopeful for this, but more than ever, we've seen that people want to be connected. And so even when the risks were even higher than they are today, people were still coming to our stores because they wanted to talk to people. And even if they didn't, they just wanted to get out and about. So we've had to maintain everything that we're doing in the stores in addition to adding to the technology piece.
So can you talk about your staff? Did you have to add more staff, or did you just have an all hands on deck approach?
In the beginning, it was more or less an all hands on deck approach. We did do quite a bit of hiring in the early stages to handle. There were points where there were lines out the door, so we needed to give some relief to our existing team members who had just spent a lot of time not taking a single day off. So we were fortunate in the sense that in Florida, the tourism business is big. Unfortunately, there were a lot of people from the theme parks or hotels or restaurants who were looking for work, even if it was just for a temporary basis. But we were able to bring them in, and a lot of them are staying with us because they like what we do. Some, fortunately, are getting their jobs back and they're going back to what they were doing before, but we did have to staff up to handle the increases.
I definitely think that it's important to make people feel safe. There's a lot of things that you can do as you kind of look at the situation that you guys were in. I know that it's not always perfect, but can you just talk about some of the things that you guys did to just get going and get started?
normally, I think it's normal for people to want to be perfect out of the gate.
Mhm.
What the last year has taught us, or maybe reminded us, is that oftentimes you don't have time to be perfect. You just got to get it started. And there were some bumps in the road. Don't get me wrong; it wasn't, the whole picture wasn't rosy for us. We struggled in a lot of areas, but we went at this with the idea that you just got to start. And to a certain degree, if you've created loyalty with your guests, which we believed we had, they will be more accepting of some flaws in your new system that you're rolling out. Curbside was something that we looked at for less than 24 hours on how are we going to do this, and then just decided we could look at this for another week. It's not going to change anything. Let's just start. And it wasn't perfect the first couple of days, but it got really good really fast. So that would be my biggest takeaway is sometimes you just have to be okay with a little less than perfect and then fix it as you go.
John, can you talk to me a little bit about the partnerships to make all of this possible inside your organization? And then who are some of the key people that you partnered with to really kind of make things happen?
Yeah, in our business, you have to have a lot of really strong partnerships. And for us, it starts with our suppliers and wholesalers because we're selling alcohol. And unless we are closely partnered with them, none of this works. But from where I sit, the biggest partnership that we needed to be solid was our partnership with Oracle. And because we knew that and experienced an enormous amount of pressure on all of our systems, and to make it work, you have to have a partnership that's going to be there for the highs and the lows. So when things start to go south, you got to be able to have a relationship with somebody enough to be honest about what's happening, but also in a position where they know, in our case, Oracle knows us now. They know where we play as a small retailer, but try to be as big as we can possibly be. So, and the point there is more on a staffing level. They know what our needs are. And so that partnership was critical for us because they knew when, if we were trying to go too fast or what technology we might be missing. And those types of things, you can't get through something like this without somebody who knows you and you know them and you have that built-in trust.
So the pandemic, nobody expected this. Obviously, it's been a crazy year. I think you do the best you can, but I know you've got some pretty cool philosophies that you guys think about from an ABC leadership team. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
The main philosophy actually comes from I believe a Winston Churchill quote. It's one that's attributed to him, and it's one that my our CEO has been using repeatedly, which is never waste a crisis, and it's really used in a business sense. And what we take from that as a company is don't waste an opportunity to figure out who we are, what we're made out of, and how we can come together better as a team. I haven't been here longer as long as some of the executives here, but I can tell you from a number of different positions that I've had over the years, there's nothing quite like a situation like this that brings a lot of people together with one goal in mind. Um, and that's what we saw from this. This never waste a crisis mentality ended up being a way for all levels of our company to understand that we are in this thing together. We have an opportunity to really play to our strengths and find a way to get better for the future.
Absolutely. I think in this last year, a lot of people have figured out what's really important and really how to work together, how to support each other. The pandemic has definitely been a challenge for many. I just want to thank you so much, Sean, for sharing your story, sharing your experience, and sharing your lessons learned. I think a lot of retailers are going to benefit from this, and I certainly appreciate your time.
Thanks
Thanks.
for having me. Thanks.
Absolutely.